Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
"What the hell are your clothes doing in MY closet?" screamed my sister-in-law, who had just moved into MY apartment. Even my husband was stunned by what I did. Good day, dear listeners. You're about to hear a story about how some people treat your personal space as their own and the unexpected consequences that follow. Today's drama is about a sister-in-law who forgot whose apartment she was living in. But even shamelessness has its limits. Enjoy the story. My two-room apartment had always been my pride. Small but cozy, with east-facing windows that flooded the living room with soft morning sunlight. I bought it 6 years ago, before I ever met Carlos. I remember scrimping and saving, working 2 jobs, accounting during the day, and tutoring math in the evenings. My mother used to shake her head. "Maria, you're going to wear yourself out." But when I got the keys, I saw tears of pride in her eyes. That apartment was my fortress. I picked out every detail myself, from the wallpaper to the curtains. In the small walk-in closet I'd converted from a storage room hung my few but beloved outfits. The couch I bought on sale, the bookshelves I assembled with my own hands. When Carlos Moreno came into my life, a tall economist with a disarming smile, it felt like my happiness had only grown. He moved into my apartment 6 months after we started dating. At first, everything was wonderful. Carlos would cook on weekends, and we picked out a new kitchen set together. Then Sophia came along, our little miracle, with her father's eyes and my stubborn chin. Carlos insisted on registering himself at my address. "We're family, what difference does it make whose name is on the papers?" I agreed, not thinking much of it at the time. The first cracks in our happiness appeared when I met his sister, Carmen, for the first time on Sophia's 3rd birthday. Carmen, a striking blonde with a hard stare, looked over the apartment like a health inspector and asked, "This is the best you two could do?" Carlos just laughed. My sister's always blunt, but I felt the first chill of unease. Over time, I noticed how Carlos changed whenever she came up. His voice got higher, his gestures more nervous. He always agreed with her, even if he'd just said the opposite a moment before. "We have a special bond," he explained. "We've been like one soul since childhood." And now that special bond had turned a normal Thursday, starting with coffee and sending Sophia off to school, into a nightmare. Surprise! The doorbell shattered the noon quiet. Standing there was Carmen, her whole family in tow, and 5 enormous suitcases. Everything happened too fast. Carlos, who'd come home early from work, I now realized that wasn't a coincidence, beamed. "Carmen, finally. We've been waiting for you." Waiting? I stood in the hallway, the ground vanishing beneath me. No one had said a word to me. Carmen swept into the apartment like a hurricane, dragging behind her Ramon, her heavyset, perpetually grumpy husband, and their 2 kids, Diego and Lucia. In a flash, the hallway turned into a warehouse of suitcases and boxes. "Maria." Carmen air-kissed the air near my cheek. "You're a lifesaver." "Just temporary, of course. A month, 2 tops." I was speechless, paralyzed by the scene. Carlos winked at me as if this was all part of a plan we'd agreed to 100 times. "Carmen and her family just need a place to crash. They're in a bit of a situation." "What situation?" I finally managed to ask. Ramon snorted, kicking off his muddy boots right onto my light-colored rug. "Banks, mortgages, loans, sick of all the damn calls. We'll stay with family until it blows over." At that moment, Sophia returned from school. Her eyes went wide at the sight of strangers overflowing our hallway. "Mom?" Sophia called out uncertainly. Carmen immediately turned her attention to the little girl. "Sophia, look how big you've gotten. Do you remember Aunt Carmen? And these are your cousins Diego and Lucia. You're going to have so much fun playing together now." I noticed how tense my daughter became. We rarely saw Carmen's family, and Sophia barely knew them. Diego, a stocky 8-year-old with a permanent pout, was already eyeing my daughter's backpack. 10-year-old Lucia, a miniature version of her mother, was giving Sophia a once-over with a skeptical look. "Kids," Carmen barked. "Show Sophia your toys." "Carlos, where will we be sleeping?" "In the kids' room, of course," my husband shrugged. "Sophia can make some room." That finally snapped me out of my daze. "Maybe we should talk about this first. Carlos, can I have a word?" But Carmen was already herding the children into Sophia's room. "Diego, Lucia, go ahead. Make yourselves comfortable." Sophia looked at me helplessly, but Carlos nudged her after her cousins. "Go play. You'll have fun." I pulled my husband into the kitchen and shut the door firmly. "Are you out of your mind? Why didn't you warn me?" Carlos gave a shrug, pretending to be surprised. "I thought you'd figured it out." I told you Carmen had problems. You said she had problems with her husband. I thought they were getting a divorce or something. He waved it off. What difference does it make? Family is family. They lost their apartment because of debt. They've got nowhere else to go. What about your mother? She has a 3-bedroom place. Mom's sick. She can't handle stress, Carlos said with a reproachful look. Maria, she's my sister. Can't you show a little compassion? I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. It's not about compassion. It's about the fact that you didn't even talk to me first. How long are they planning to stay? A month or two, until they sort out their housing situation, he said, placing his hands on my shoulders. Maria, be reasonable. They have nowhere else to go. What, should we throw them out on the street? Just then, a cry came from the kids' room. Sophia was crying. I flinched, but Carlos held me back. They're just playing. Don't interfere, let them work it out. From the living room, I could already hear Ramon's booming voice commenting on a football match. I peeked and he had made himself quite at home on the couch, feet propped on the coffee table, munching on my crackers and scattering crumbs across the rug. So he's just going to hang out here too? I nodded toward Ramon. Carlos hesitated. He's going through a rough patch. His business collapsed. He's depressed. What business? Well, he used to sell computers or phones or something. Does it really matter? Carlos waved his hand irritably. Carmen's trying to hold things together, but it's tough for both of them right now. The shouting from the kids' room was getting louder. I broke free and rushed in. When I opened the door, I froze in place. Sophia's room, normally neat and tidy, had turned into a war zone. Toys were scattered everywhere, books had been pulled off the shelves, and in the center of the chaos, Diego was shaking Sophia's stuffed bear, her favorite toy. Give it back. That's my osito. Sophia sobbed, trying to grab the bear. It's mine now, Diego declared, twisting the bear's arm. Lucia, sitting on my daughter's bed, was methodically going through her jewelry box. Ugh, all this stuff is so cheap. I rushed over to Sophia. What's going on here? Diego, give her the bear right now. Don't you tell my son what to do. Carmen appeared in the doorway. They're just playing. Sophia needs to learn how to share. Sharing doesn't mean letting someone destroy her things. I took the battered bear from Diego and gave it back to my crying daughter. Oh please, what a drama queen. Carmen rolled her eyes. Carlos, your wife is making a scene over a toy. Carlos appeared in the doorway. Maria, seriously, why are you overreacting? Let the kids sort it out. I held my trembling daughter in my arms. They're not sorting it out, they're bullying your daughter. Oh, so delicate, aren't we? Carmen scoffed. Diego, Lucia, come here. Don't touch Sophia. She's special, poor sensitive thing. The kids left the room grinning. Sophia sat sniffling, clutching her bear with one arm nearly torn off. It's going to be okay, sweetheart, I whispered, wiping her tears. It's only for a little while. If only I had known what a little while would really mean. The evening turned into a nightmare. Ramon had taken over the couch, demanding beer and flipping through TV channels nonstop. Carmen inspected every corner of the apartment, opening drawers and cabinets as if she had every right to know where everything was. At dinner, which I made for everyone, though no one even offered to help, Ramon pushed his plate away with disdain. What is this crap? Carmen cooks better. Then cook it yourself if you're so talented, I muttered under my breath. What was that? Carmen narrowed her eyes. She's joking, Carlos jumped in. Right, Maria? I stayed silent, watching Sophia barely pick at her food, seated between Diego, who kept elbowing her, and Lucia, who sighed dramatically with boredom. After dinner, Carmen announced that she and Carlos needed to discuss family matters, and they locked themselves in the kitchen. I put the kids to bed, or rather, tried to find space for Sophia among the belongings of our new guests. We finally decided she would sleep with me and Carlos, while Diego and Lucia took her room. Ramon remained sprawled on the living room couch. Judging by the sounds, he had opened another beer and was watching TV at full volume. Around midnight, after Sophia had finally fallen asleep, Carlos returned. He smelled like cognac apparently. Family matters required alcohol. Why didn't you tell me? I asked quietly so I wouldn't wake our daughter. Tell you what, he said, undressing without looking at me. That they were coming to live with us. I didn't think it would be a problem for you. Carlos climbed under the blanket. Carmen was always there for me when I needed help. Now it's my turn. I understand that, I said, but they could at least try to behave. Ramon spent the whole day on the couch, and their kids tormented Sophia. Carlos turned to me, a strange gleam in his eyes. Don't you dare talk about my family like that. Ramon is just depressed, and kids will be kids. You're overreacting. I'm overreacting? I shot back. Did you even see what they did to Sophia's room? Maria, his voice dropped to a dangerously quiet tone. I'm not discussing this. They're staying. End of story. They're my family, and I won't abandon them. And what about us? Me and Sophia? Aren't we your family? He turned away. Of course you are, but so are they. Get used to it. I lay awake, listening to Ramon's snoring echoing from the living room and the muffled voices of Diego and Lucia, who clearly weren't planning to sleep. Carlos was snoring next to me, and between us, curled up tight, slept Sophia, clinging to her battered teddy bear. I stared at the ceiling, realizing that in my life and my fortress the countdown to catastrophe had begun. This was only the beginning of the invasion, and I had no idea what was coming next. The morning of the second day started with a crash from the kitchen. I sat up in bed 6:30 a.m. Sophia was still curled up asleep, and Carlos's spot was empty. I threw on my robe and stepped out of the bedroom. Carmen was ruling the kitchen. Cabinet doors wide open, the table piled with food. My favorite porcelain mug, chipped but cherished, was lying in the sink. "What are you doing?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Carmen jumped, startled, then gave a wide smile. "Good morning, sleepyhead. I decided to make everyone breakfast. Carlos said you're not much of a cook." That was a lie. I loved cooking and I was good at it. It's just that lately Carlos preferred eating at work, and the rare compliments he gave my food had dwindled into a flat, disinterested "it's fine." "Where's Carlos?" I glanced around at the disaster in my kitchen: flour spilled across the counter, eggshells floating in a bowl of water. "He left early for work. Said he had a lot to do," Carmen said, beating the batter like it had personally offended her. "You know, Maria, I noticed yesterday your fridge is basically empty. Don't you cook for your family?" "I was planning to go shopping today," I replied, watching as she poured the batter into a pan, spilling half of it onto the stove. "Don't worry, I made a list. You can run to the store after work," she said, handing me a page scribbled in large, loopy handwriting. It was a long list: steaks, red caviar, and everything in between. "Carmen, are you aware of our family's income?" I handed the list back to her. "We can't afford half of this." She rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh, come on. Carlos said your finances were totally fine. Don't be stingy, Maria. We're family." Family in her mouth sounded like a sentence. A sleepy voice drifted in from the living room. "Carmen, where's that coffee?" Carmen flinched and rushed to the coffee maker. "Coming, Ramon." I watched her scramble to brew coffee for her husband. The same woman who had just been ordering me around had now turned into a fawning waitress. Something about the scene felt deeply wrong. "By the way," Carmen turned, holding a steaming cup of coffee, "Carlos said you'll pick up Diego and Lucia from school today. I enrolled them in the same school Sophia goes to. You can get all three at once." "What? But I work until 6. "Then leave early," she shrugged. "Carlos said your boss is reasonable. He'll understand." I clenched my teeth. Just yesterday morning, my life was calm and structured, and now this woman was dictating when I should leave work. "I can't just leave like that. I have a quarterly report due," I protested. "Oh, stop with the excuses," Carmen scoffed, walking past me with the coffee. "Reports will still be there tomorrow. Kids can't wait." I watched her go, feeling rage rise inside me. Carlos hadn't even discussed this with me. He just made decisions for both of us. Sophia came running into the room, disheveled. "Mom, I didn't sleep well. Can I skip school today?" I hugged her. She looked truly exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, pale cheeks. "No, sweetheart, you have to go. I'll pick you up early, okay? Are they going to my school too?" she whispered, nodding toward the children's room where Diego and Lucia's voices could be heard. I nodded. "I'm afraid so, but keep your distance from them if they're mean." "Lucia said I'm ugly and stupid yesterday," Sophia whispered, lowering her head, "and Diego took my pencil case with all my pens." I felt my anger crystallize into pure, concentrated hatred. No one gets to hurt my child. "Come on," I said, taking her hand. "I'll walk you to school myself." We got ready quickly, avoiding the kitchen where Carmen was still clattering dishes. Passing through the living room, I saw Ramon. He was sprawled on the couch in a dirty t-shirt and sweatpants. Unshaven, hair a mess, he looked more like a homeless man than a failed businessman. "Where are you off to?" he asked, eyeing us with a foggy stare. "School," I replied shortly. "As for Diego and Lucia, their mother can handle them." Ramon snorted. "Well, aren't you the bossy one?" "Hey, Carmen." he shouted. Your rugrats are gonna be late for school. Carmen burst out of the kitchen, holding a ladle. Maria, couldn't you wake them up? I'm not your kid's nanny, I snapped. I marched to the door, holding Sophia's hand tightly. I'm telling Carlos everything. Carmen yelled after me. He'll put you in your place fast. I slammed the door so hard I thought the windows might shatter. On the way to school, I tried to calm down. Sophia walked beside me, clutching my hand. Mom, are they going to stay long? She asked quietly. No, sweetheart, not for long, I lied, having no idea how this would end. They're taking my things and saying it's their room now, Sophia complained. And Daddy said I shouldn't be selfish. I clenched my jaw. No one has the right to take your things. If it happens again, tell me right away. At the school gate, I crouched down to look my daughter in the eyes. Be strong, okay? Stay away from Diego and Lucia. If they bother you, go straight to your teacher. Sophia nodded, but her eyes were brimming with tears. Will you really pick me up early? I promise, I kissed her forehead. After the third lesson, okay? At work, I couldn't concentrate. The numbers in the report blurred before my eyes. I made 2 calculation mistakes, something that hadn't happened to me in years. Maria, are you all right? Asked Conchita Lopez, our chief accountant. You look so pale. Just didn't sleep well, I waved it off. Conchita, can I leave early today? I need to pick up my daughter from school. She raised her eyebrows in surprise. Is Sophia sick? No, just family stuff. Well, just for today, she nodded. Will you finish the report? Of course. I'll stay late tomorrow if I have to. I picked up Sophia as promised. She ran out of the classroom with relief written all over her face. Everything okay? I asked, hugging her. Yes. They're in a different class, Sophia nodded. The teacher said Lucia is older, so she's in 4th grade, and Diego's in 3rd. I barely saw them. We decided not to go home right away. We walked in the park, stopped by an ice cream cafe. Sophia slowly began to relax and smile again. It hurt to see how the stress of the last few days had already worn down my little girl. Mom, can we sleep together while they're here? She asked as we finally headed home. Of course, honey, I squeezed her hand. We'll get through this, I promise. But when I opened the apartment door, I realized my optimism had been premature. Shoes of all sizes littered the hallway, jackets hung sloppily from hooks, and loud voices spilled from the living room. The whole crew was gathered there. Here come our party girls, Carmen called from the hallway. We were starting to wonder. You didn't forget the shopping list, did you? What shopping list? I was helping Sophia with her coat. The one I gave you this morning? Carmen threw up her hands. Good grief, did you lose your memory completely? I was counting on you. Carlos emerged from the living room, his face tense. Maria, why didn't you pick up the kids from school? What kids? I was confused. I picked up Sophia, just like I said I would. And Diego and Lucia? He crossed his arms. Carmen had to rush over and get them herself. I never agreed to pick up your niece and nephew. I shot back. I have a job, remember? And you think Carmen doesn't have things to do? Carlos raised his voice. She cooked, cleaned the whole day. You could have shown a little support. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Carlos was defending his sister who had barged into our lives uninvited against me, the woman he had lived with for 5 years, the mother of his child. Come on, Sophia, I said, pulling her toward the bedroom. We need to get changed. Maria, Carlos called after me. We're not done talking. Oh, I think we are, I snapped, slamming the bedroom door shut. Sophia looked at me with frightened eyes. Mom, why is Dad yelling? He's just tired, I hugged her tightly. Don't worry, everything's going to be okay. Sophia nodded, but I could see she didn't believe it. My smart little girl understood everything. We stayed in the bedroom until evening. I helped Sophia with her homework, then we read a book. I was afraid to leave the room to run into Carlos or his sister. Around 7, there was a knock at the door. Maria, Carlos's voice was conciliatory, come out for dinner. Carmen made her famous paella. I opened the door. We're not hungry. Come on, he smiled, as if nothing had happened. You can't hide in there all evening. Sophia, do you want some paella? Sophia looked at me uncertainly. Can we eat in here? Carlos's face darkened. Don't be silly. The whole family's at the table. Fine, I gave in. Let's go, Sophia. There was barely enough room in the kitchen. Carmen was bustling at the stove, Ramon already seated with a beer in hand. Diego and Lucia were whispering and giggling about something. Here come our little recluses. Carmen sang out, spooning paella onto plates. Sit down before it gets cold. Sophia and I squeezed into the last remaining seats. The paella was overly salty, but Carlos praised it like he was eating something from a Michelin-starred chef. Carmen's always been a great cook, he said with a wink at his sister. Remember how you used to feed me when Mom worked late? Carmen beamed. Of course. You were such a little glutton. You could eat a whole pot of potatoes. They started reminiscing about their childhood, interrupting each other with laughter. I sat silently, feeling like a guest in my own kitchen. Sophia was quietly stirring her food, eyes downcast. Remember that school camping trip? Carmen laughed. You fell into the stream and got soaked through. Oh, yeah. Carlos smiled more genuinely than he had at me in months. And you gave me your jacket, even though you were freezing. Anything for my little brother. Carmen tousled his cheek with a gesture that made my skin crawl. For a moment, it didn't look like a brother and sister reconnecting, it looked like a couple on a date. There was something unnatural, something off about how they looked at each other. After dinner, I started doing the dishes. Carmen, basking in her brother's attention, deigned to help by drying plates with a towel. You know, Maria, she said suddenly, in a low voice. I've always told Carlos he needed a different kind of woman. More domestic. I almost dropped the plate. Excuse me? Well, he's my brother. I know what's best for him, she shrugged. Don't you think you're a bit mismatched? You're always so work-focused. Carlos needs warmth, care. That's what he grew up with from our mother. And of course you know what he needs? I said through clenched teeth. Of course, she said brightly, oblivious to the sarcasm. We've been together since childhood. I know him inside and out. She spoke about my husband like he was her property. I felt a wave of nausea rise in my throat. Carmen, I turned to her, let's get one thing straight. This apartment is mine. Carlos is my husband. If you don't like it here, the door is right there. I nodded toward the hallway. She was taken aback but quickly regained her composure. Easy now, she said. I'm just calling it like I see it. You know, I could always tell Carlos how you talk to me. Go ahead, I shrugged. Maybe then he'll finally see who you really are. And who's that? She narrowed her eyes. A manipulative, selfish witch, I snapped and instantly regretted the words. Carmen's face twisted with rage. She threw the dish towel to the floor. You bitch! Carlos! Carlos! Carlos burst into the kitchen. What's going on? Your wife, Carmen pointed a trembling finger at me. She called me a witch. She told us to get out. Carlos stared at me like I'd suddenly grown another head. Maria, is that true? I could have lied, pretended Carmen was exaggerating, but I was done with the charade. Yes, I said, nodding. I told you she manipulates you. And it's the truth. Carlos's face darkened. How can you say that? Carmen has always been there for me. She's always supported me. And what about me? I stepped closer. I've been here for 5 years. I gave you a daughter. But the moment your sister snaps her fingers, you turn into her little errant boy. Carmen gave a theatrical sob. See how mean she is? I told you. Carlos pulled her into a protective hug. Calm down, Carmen. Maria's just not herself. No, Carlos, I shook my head. I am myself. For the first time in a long time. And you know what I see? A pathetic man being controlled by his sister. He stepped toward me, fists clenched. Shut up. Don't you dare talk about Carmen like that. Or what? I raised my chin. You'll hit me? Go on, Carlos. Show me what kind of man you are. We stood there, locked in a stare. I could see the rage battling with the last scraps of reason in his eyes. Carmen watched us with a twisted kind of excitement. You know what? Carlos finally growled. Just go to bed. We've got nothing to talk about. You're right, I said. We don't. As I walked out of the kitchen, I heard Carmen whisper behind me. She's always been like this. I told you. Sophia was waiting for me in the bedroom. She sat on the bed, hugging her knees. Mom, did you and Dad have a fight? I hugged her. A little, but everything will be fine. I promise. Dad was yelling, she whispered. I got scared. He's just tired, I said, stroking her hair, trying to calm her and myself. Let's go to bed. Tomorrow's a new day. Sophia fell asleep quickly, worn out by all the stress. I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling. Voices still echoed from the living room. Carlos and Carmen were talking. I heard Carmen's laughter, Ramon's low voice demanding more booze. This had been my apartment, my fortress, and now it had turned into a battlefield. And I was starting to realize I was losing a war I never even declared. Carlos came in late at night and lay down at the very edge of the bed, facing away from me and Sophia. I pretended to be asleep, though I didn't close my eyes until dawn. In the morning, I woke up with a sense that something had changed. The silence was strange too complete. No clattering from the kitchen, no noise from the bathroom. I got up carefully, not wanting to wake Sophia. Out in the hallway, I saw the door to the kids' room was slightly open. I peeked in and froze. The room was a mess, closets open, Sophia's toys shoved into a corner. Diego and Lucia were on the bed, watching cartoons on a tablet. "Where are your parents?" I asked. "They left," Diego replied without looking up from the screen. "Where?" "Mom said she, Uncle Carlos, and Dad went to look at an apartment," Lucia said proudly. "What apartment?" "I don't know," she shrugged. "Mom said we're moving soon." A wave of relief washed over me. Could it be they'd finally found a place? But something about Lucia's tone unsettled me. "And where will you live?" I asked as casually as I could. "Here," Diego looked up from the tablet. "Mom said Uncle Carlos promised her the big room." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean, here? In this apartment?" "Yeah," Lucia nodded. "Mom said there's plenty of space, we just have to organize it better." I stepped out of the kids' room, feeling dizzy. What was Carlos planning? What apartment were they going to see? I got my answer that evening when the whole group returned, excited and cheerful. "Maria," Carlos said with unusual enthusiasm, "we've got great news." "What news?" I looked at their beaming faces with growing anxiety. "We found a solution to our space problem," he said, wrapping an arm around Carmen's shoulders. "Carmen found a cozy one-bedroom apartment nearby. It's affordable and nice." "They're moving out?" I felt a flicker of hope. "No," Carlos laughed. "We, you, me, and Sophia are moving there. This apartment is bigger. It'll be more comfortable for Carmen and her family." I stared at him, not believing my ears. "You're joking?" "Not at all," he said, still excited. "Carmen's going to help with the mortgage on the new place. We've already talked to the bank." "Carlos," I said slowly, trying to appeal to reason. "This apartment is mine. I bought it before we were even married." "So what?" He shrugged. "We're family. What difference does it make whose name is on the papers?" "A big one," I crossed my arms. "I'm not moving out and I'm definitely not giving my apartment to your sister." Carmen scoffed. "So ungrateful. We're trying to help you, and she acts like a queen." "Help?" I laughed bitterly. "You barged into my home, torment my daughter, and now you want to throw us out and that's what you call help?" Carlos grabbed my elbow. "Don't make a scene. Carmen and I have thought everything through. You'll like it there, I promise." I yanked my arm away. "Don't even dream of it. I'm not going anywhere. And neither is Sophia." "Is that so?" His face darkened. "What if I insist?" "Insist all you want." I looked him straight in the eyes. "The apartment documents are in my name. You can't evict me." Carmen jumped in between us. "Carlos, I told you she's selfish. She only thinks about herself." "And who do you think about?" I turned to her. "Your brother? Or just getting your hands on someone else's property?" "You bitch." Carmen raised her hand, but I caught her wrist midair. "Don't even try it," I hissed. "Or I'll call the police." "Maria." Carlos pulled me away from his sister. "Stop it right now." "No, you stop." I backed toward the bedroom door. "You have 1 week to find somewhere else to live. All of you." "What do you mean all of us?" Carlos went pale. "I'm registered here. And I'm the owner," I shot back. "And if I have to, I'll have your registration revoked." The morning of the third day came with a new, steely determination. While Sophia still slept, I pulled a folder from the closet containing all the documents for the apartment: certificate of ownership, purchase agreement, registry extract. Everything was in my name. Carlos and I had no prenuptial agreement, and I had bought the apartment before our marriage, which meant it was not considered joint property. I took photos of all the documents and sent them to my longtime friend Elena, a lawyer. SOS. Carlos wants to kick me out of my own apartment. What do I do? I wrote in the message. The reply came almost instantly. Call me ASAP. Urgent. Sophia stirred in her sleep. I quickly put the documents back in the closet and started getting ready for work. The apartment was unusually quiet. Apparently, the whole crew was still asleep after last night's plotting. I woke Sophia and helped her get dressed. We had a quiet breakfast of yogurt and cookies, avoiding the kettle so we wouldn't make noise. "Mom," Sophia whispered. "Is it true we're moving?" I froze. "Who told you that?" "Yesterday Lucia was bragging that we're leaving, and she's going to live in my room." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. I don't want to leave, Mom. All my stuff is here, and I can see our palm tree from the window. I hugged her tightly. We're not going anywhere. I promise. This is our home. But Dad told Aunt Carmen we'd be happier in the new apartment, Sophia sniffled. I heard him. Don't listen to what your dad says, I wiped her tears. We're staying right here. Trust me, okay? She nodded, but I saw the doubt in her eyes. In just a few days, Sophia had grown up. She no longer took adults at their word. We got ready and slipped quietly out of the apartment. On the way to school, I called Elena. Maria, what's going on over there? Her voice was tense. I told her everything: the sudden invasion of relatives, Carlos's relocation plans, how he'd changed in just a few days. Listen carefully, Elena spoke with the clarity of a lawyer in session. The apartment is yours, you're the sole owner. No one can force you to move without your consent. But Carlos is registered there, and that's the problem. How serious? I tightened my grip on Sophia's hand. Removing him without consent is difficult. You'd need a court order, she sighed. But there's another option: file for divorce immediately. At the same time, submit a petition to evict him. Do you have the property documents? Yes, in the closet. Get them out of the house immediately. Hide them somewhere safe. And start keeping a record. Write down everything: conflicts, threats, especially if there are witnesses. Like a neighbor? Perfect. Also try to record conversations on your phone. Those recordings can help in court. We agreed to meet that evening after work. I dropped Sophia off at school and asked her teacher to keep a close eye on her. We're going through a complicated family situation, I explained to Isabel Martinez. If anyone other than me tries to pick her up, please call me right away. At work, I couldn't focus. The report I was working on seemed meaningless compared to what was happening at home. During lunch, I went to the nearest bank and rented a safety deposit box. I placed the apartment documents and both our passports inside just in case. Elena met me in a small cafe near my office. We hadn't seen each other in months. I'd been buried in work and family matters, and she'd recently had her second child. Looking at her confident face now, I regretted not keeping in better touch. Here's the divorce petition, she said, handing me a folder. It's already filled out, just needs your signature. And here's the motion for eviction. Take both to the court tomorrow. That fast? I flipped through the documents. Better to act first. Elena sipped her coffee. If Carlos files for divorce before you do, he could try to divide property, even what doesn't belong to him. It could drag on for months. I signed the papers. My hand was trembling, but there was no doubt left. The marriage had ended the moment Carlos chose his sister over me. Now, listen to the plan. Elena leaned in closer. Pick up Sophia today and don't go home. Stay at my place or with your parents. My mom's in another city. I shook my head. And my dad's been gone for 5 years. Then you're coming to me. She squeezed my hand. Tomorrow morning I'll take the documents to court, and you'll go home with police and a bailiff. They won't evict him right away, but it'll officially document the situation. And if Carlos doesn't open the door, you have keys. It's your property. You're within your rights. I sighed. I never thought I'd be kicking my own husband out with the police. Could be worse. Elena finished her coffee. The important thing is to protect yourself and Sophia. Carlos is clearly not himself. It's his sister. There's something off. They've always been close, but not this close. I remembered how Carmen had touched his face. Or maybe he's just completely under her thumb, Elena muttered. Anyway, stick to the plan. Pick up Sophia and come straight to me. I hugged my friend and headed to the school. But the plan was doomed from the start. As I approached the school, I spotted a familiar figure. Carlos was already at the gate. Carmen stood nearby, the two of them arguing animatedly, unaware of my presence. I slowed down, debating what to do. Leave without picking up Sophia? Impossible. Walk up and cause a scene? Also not an option. Just then, the school bell rang and children began pouring out. I quickened my pace, hoping to reach Sophia before Carlos did. But they beat me to it. Carmen was the first to spot my daughter and practically dragged her out of the crowd of students. Sophia, we're here to pick you up, me and Daddy. Her voice was sickly sweet, and I could hear it even from where I stood. Sophia looked around in confusion, clearly searching for me. I rushed toward them. Sophia, I'm here. Carlos turned around, his face twisted with anger. Maria, what are you doing here? I'm picking up my daughter, I said, stepping up to Sophia and taking her hand. Hi, sweetheart, let's go home. No, Carlos blocked our path. Sophia and I are going to see the new apartment. Right, honey? Sophia looked back and forth between us, frightened. Mom? You're not going anywhere, I said, tightening my grip on her hand. We're going home. Carmen stepped beside her brother, forming a human wall. Carlos said they're going to see the apartment. What's so hard to understand? No one asked for your opinion, I snapped. Carlos, don't cause a scene in front of our daughter. Move aside. Several parents were already watching us with growing curiosity. Carlos noticed their stares and lowered his voice. Maria, don't be ridiculous. We agreed. You're moving out. We're staying. I never agreed to that, I said, pulling Sophia toward me. Let's go, sweetheart. Carlos grabbed Sophia's other hand. No, she's coming with me. Sophia cried out in pain, caught between us. Carmen stood there, smiling smugly as she watched it unfold. Let her go. I yanked Sophia toward me. You're hurting her. You're the one hurting her with your stubbornness. Carlos pulled her back. Sophia, tell mommy you want to see the new apartment? Sophia burst into tears. I want to go home. Please stop. We were now attracting the attention not just of other parents, but of the school staff. Isabel Martinez, Sophia's teacher, came out of the building. What's going on here? Sophia, are you okay? No. Sophia sobbed, trying to wriggle free from her father's grip. Daddy is hurting me. Be quiet. Carlos barked at her. But it was too late. Isabel Martinez stepped in firmly. Let go of the child immediately, or I'll call the police. Carlos reluctantly let go. I pulled Sophia into my arms, holding my trembling daughter close. I'm sorry for this scene, I said to the teacher. We're dealing with a difficult family situation. I can see that, Isabel said sternly, glaring at Carlos. If you continue to traumatize this child, I'll have no choice but to report this to Child Protective Services. Carmen scoffed. What right do you have? She's his daughter. And who exactly are you? The teacher shot her a cold look. I'm his sister. Then all the more reason for you to stay out of matters between a parent and their child, Isabel Martinez snapped. Sophia, do you want to go with your mom? Still sobbing, Sophia nodded. Yes, please. Very well, the teacher turned to Carlos. And you, young man, should take a moment to reflect on what you just did to your daughter's mental state. Carlos turned crimson but held himself back. Carmen tugged on his sleeve. Come on, Carlos. There's no point talking to her. They walked away, but I heard Carlos mutter over his shoulder. This isn't over, Maria. We'll talk at home. I thanked Isabel Martinez and walked away with Sophia. We didn't go home. I took her to the mall, bought her some ice cream to distract her from what had just happened. Then we went to see a children's movie. The whole time, I was texting with Elena, updating our plan. Don't go back tonight, she insisted. I need to at least grab some things, I replied. Too risky. Wait until tomorrow. Go with the bailiff. But by evening, I had made up my mind. We were going home. It was my apartment, and I wouldn't let them throw me out of my own house. It was around 9 p.m. when Sophia and I reached our floor. Loud voices echoed from inside the apartment. Sounded like a party. I inserted the key and opened the door. What we saw was worse than I expected. The living room was full of people. Carlos, Carmen, Ramon, and several strangers. Bottles littered the table, the air reeked of cigarette smoke, and the music was blasting so loud the neighbors were probably on the verge of calling the police. Look who's back, the lady of the house. Ramon slurred, spotting me. Welcome back to your humble abode. Everyone turned to face us. Carlos, holding a wine glass, staggered to his feet and came toward us. Finally, we've been waiting for you. His voice was too loud, his steps unsteady. What is going on here? I looked around at the wrecked living room. It's a party. Carmen darted to Carlos's side, hugging him by the shoulders. We're celebrating the move-in. What move-in? I felt Sophia clutching me tightly, frightened by the noise and the strangers. Come on now, Carlos gestured around the room. Carmen and Ramon are officially moving in with us, and we're moving to the new place. I already paid the deposit. I froze. You did what? Paid a deposit. He puffed out his chest proudly. 30,000. Carmen pitched in another 20. We're signing the lease tomorrow. Carlos, are you out of your mind? I lowered my voice to avoid scaring Sophia more. I'm not moving, and I'm definitely not handing over my apartment to your sister. Carmen giggled. You hear that? She still thinks it's her decision. One of the strangers, a balding man with a gold chain, raised his glass. To the new owners of the apartment, Carmen and Ramon. May you live happily ever after. They all toasted together. I stood there in disbelief. They were celebrating their victory over me in my own home. Sophia, go to the bedroom, I gently nudged my daughter. Pack your things, just the essentials in your backpack. And where do you think you're going? Carlos blocked Sophia's path. You're not going anywhere. Step away from the child, I growled through clenched teeth. Or what? He leaned in, his breath reeking of alcohol. What are you going to do, Maria? Call the police? I'm registered here, I have every right. I'm the owner of this apartment, I reminded him. And I never gave permission for this party. All of you need to leave. Now. Ramon burst into laughter. Listen to the little commander. Go on, Carlos, show her who's boss around here. Fueled by their support, Carlos grabbed me by the elbow. Enough with the drama. Either you accept the arrangement, or what? I jerked my arm free. You'll hit me? In front of witnesses? In front of your daughter? Mom. Sophia cried out and ran toward me, but Carmen caught her mid-step. Shoo, sweetie, she cooed. The adults are talking. Let go of my daughter. I lunged toward Sophia, but Carlos grabbed me again. Calm down, he shouted, shaking me so hard my teeth clicked. You don't get to decide anything anymore. Let her go. A calm voice came from the doorway. Everyone turned. Standing there was Miguel Garcia, our neighbor, a man in his 70s but still strong and steady. He looked around the room with open disgust. And who are you? Carmen sneered, chin raised. How did you get in? The door was open, the old man shrugged. And the noise was shaking the entire floor. I figured someone might need help. We don't need your help, old man. Ramon stood, wobbling slightly. Get lost before you get hurt. Miguel didn't even look at him. Maria, are you okay? No, I tried to pull free from Carlos's grip. They've turned my home into a dump and won't let me and my daughter leave. She's lying. Carmen shrieked. This is a family matter. I can see that, Miguel said dryly. Now all non-residents out. Immediately. And just who the hell are you? Ramon staggered toward him, fists clenched. I'll show you. What happened next looked like slow motion. Ramon lunged at Miguel, who dodged the swing with ease and delivered a short, sharp right hook. Ramon slammed into the wall and slid to the floor, clutching his jaw. Who's next? Miguel asked calmly. Carlos let go of me and rushed toward his brother-in-law. You bastard. He didn't finish. Miguel caught him with a swift left to the jaw. Carlos stumbled and collapsed to his knees. Carmen screamed and let go of Sophia. What are you doing? I'm calling the police. Go ahead, Miguel nodded. While you're at it, explain why you're illegally occupying someone else's property. Then he turned to me. Maria, gather your things. You and your daughter can stay at my place if you'd like. I nodded, still in disbelief. Thank you, Miguel. Sophia ran to me, and I scooped her into my arms. We rushed to the bedroom and packed the essentials. When we returned to the living room, the scene had changed. The strangers were gone. Ramon was still on the floor, clutching his jaw. Carlos sat rubbing his face. Carmen was yelling into the phone, clearly calling the police. Let's go, Miguel Garcia nodded toward the door. They'll sober up by morning. We stepped out of the apartment. Sophia was still trembling, but she wasn't crying anymore. Thank you, I said to the neighbor as we climbed one floor up to his apartment. I don't know what we would have done without you. I'm a former paratrooper, the old man shrugged as he unlocked the door. I can't stand seeing women and children mistreated. Come on in, don't be shy. His apartment was clean and tidy. Clearly, he took pride in keeping things in order. The walls were covered in photographs, and the bookshelves were lined with neat rows of books. Make yourselves comfortable, he gestured to the couch. Coffee? Yes, please, I said, settling Sophia beside me. Miguel, aren't you worried they'll actually call the police? He smirked. Let them. I was protecting a woman and her child from a bunch of drunken thugs. Any officer will understand that. Sophia looked at the old man, eyes wide. Were you really a paratrooper? I was, he nodded, putting the kettle on. 30 years of service. Retired after that. And you can fight? She was clearly impressed. I can, he smiled, but I only use it as a last resort like tonight. We drank coffee while I told him everything, how Carmen and her family had invaded our life, how Carlos had changed under her influence, and how they tried to drive us out of the apartment. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow, I concluded, and for eviction. Good, Miguel nodded. You can't deal with people like that any other way. They only understand force. Sophia had curled up and fallen asleep on the couch. I gently covered her with a blanket Miguel handed me. I don't even know how to thank you, I whispered. No need to thank me, he shook his head. I just do what I think is right. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. In the morning, we had breakfast at Miguel Garcia's. I took Sophia to school, reminding her teacher that under no circumstances was Carlos allowed to pick her up. Then I met Elena, and we went to the courthouse to file the divorce and eviction documents. Next, we go to the police, Elena said. You need to file reports for attempted unlawful eviction and threats. And after that? I asked, exhausted from a sleepless night. After that, we go to your apartment with a court officer and make everything official. The process took all day. By evening, worn out from endless paperwork, I finally received copies of all the filed reports and a temporary court injunction forbidding Carlos and his relatives from removing me from my own apartment. Now let's go, Elena said, getting behind the wheel. The bailiff is waiting at your building. My heart pounded as we climbed the stairs. At the door to my apartment stood a court bailiff and 2 uniformed police officers. Maria? The bailiff confirmed. Here's the court order. We'll document the current situation and serve your husband notice of the divorce proceedings. I nodded and inserted my key into the lock. It didn't budge. What the hell? I jiggled the handle. They changed the locks. The bailiff knocked on the door. Open up. Court officer. Silence. I rang the doorbell, no response. Break it open, the bailiff nodded to the officers. We have a court order. One of the police officers pulled out a special tool, and within a minute the door swung open. The apartment was empty, completely empty. No furniture, no appliances, no belongings. They had even taken the curtains off the windows. What happened? I slowly walked through the bare rooms. Where is everything? Elena shook her head. They took it all while we were at the courthouse. The emptiness screamed louder than any argument. I walked through the apartment slowly, my fingertips brushing the bare walls. They had taken everything from the sofa to the last spoon. Even Sophia's drawings that used to hang on the refrigerator were gone. We need to call the police, Elena said, placing a hand on my shoulder. This is grand theft. I nodded, unable to say a word. The bailiff continued photographing the rooms, documenting the robbery with methodical precision. Was the property jointly acquired? One of the officers asked. Partially, I finally found my voice. But most of it was purchased before the marriage. The furniture, electronics, all of Sophia's things, they were mine. We'll file a report, the officer said with a nod. Any idea where they might have taken everything? I thought for a moment. Where would Carlos and Carmen haul an entire apartment's worth of belongings? Maybe to their mother's place, I said. She has a 3-bedroom apartment in the East District. We'll check it, the officer noted in his pad. Any other locations? The dacha, I began, then stopped. Carlos has a dacha in Luz Angeles. They might have taken everything there. While the officers finished filing the report, I wandered through the empty apartment, trying to wrap my head around what had happened. In the bedroom, on the windowsill, I found something unexpected, a single stuffed bear. Sophia's. The one with the half-torn arm. They must have forgotten it in the rush or deemed it unworthy of taking. I clutched the toy to my chest, and only then did the tears come pouring out. Maria, Elena said, pulling me into a comforting hug. Hang in there. The worst part is over. How will I tell Sophia? I wiped my tears. They took everything she owned, all her toys, her books. We'll get it all back, Elena said firmly. In the meantime, you'll stay with us. I already spoke to Javier, he's fine with it. I nodded gratefully. Javier, Elena's husband, had always been kind and welcoming. The police finished their report and left, promising to begin searching for Carlos and the stolen belongings immediately. The bailiff also departed, handing me a copy of the official statement. Elena and I were left alone in the empty apartment. What now? I asked, glancing around. Bare walls, empty closets. Even the curtains are gone. Now we change the locks, Elena said, always practical. Then we go pick up Sophia. We went downstairs to look for a locksmith and ran into Miguel Garcia. The old man was carrying a bag of groceries, but when he saw us, he stopped. Maria, what's the situation? I made a helpless gesture with my hand. They took everything, furniture, all our belongings. Miguel Garcia frowned. So that's what all the noise was. I heard banging this afternoon, thought someone was doing renovations. Turns out they were hauling out furniture. Did you see them? I grabbed his sleeve. Do you know where they went? There was a truck, he nodded. A van with a moving company logo. Carlos was in charge, and that sister of his was bossing the movers around. Did you hear where they went? No, the old man shook his head. But I remembered the license plate. Old habit. He smiled and recited the number. I immediately relayed it to the police over the phone. Now they had a lead to track the truck and possibly recover our things. While Elena arranged for a locksmith to change the locks, I went up to Miguel's apartment to collect the backpack Sophia and I had left with him that morning. "How's your daughter?" he asked, making coffee. "Was she too scared?" "She doesn't know yet," I sighed. "I'll pick her up from school and take her to my friends for now, until we figure things out." "What about the apartment?" "I'm going to live there." I straightened my shoulders. "It's my home. I'll have to start from scratch, buy furniture, clothes, everything." Miguel Garcia looked at me intently. "I have a folding bed you can borrow, and an old TV in the kitchen I don't use anymore. Take them if you want." I was touched. "Thank you, but I can't." "Yes, you can," he interrupted. "Neighbors help each other, especially in hard times." When I went back downstairs, the locks had already been changed. Elena handed me the new keys. "Now they can't get in. Let's go pick up Sophia." On the way to school, I kept rehearsing in my head how I would explain to my daughter that everything she owned had been stolen. How do you tell a 7-year-old that her father is a thief? That he and her aunt emptied our home? Sophia was waiting for me in the schoolyard. When she saw Elena and me, she ran toward us with a big smile. "Mom, Aunt Elena, today we drew outer space." I hugged her, swallowing the lump in my throat. "That's great, sweetheart. Listen, I have some news for you." Sophia peered into my face. "Good news or bad?" "A bit of both," I said, taking her hand. "Remember Aunt Elena? We're going to stay at her place for a few days." "Why not at home?" Sophia frowned. "Is Aunt Carmen and Uncle Ramon still there?" "No," I shook my head. "They left. And they took some things with them." "What things?" Sophia asked cautiously. I sighed. "A lot. Almost everything. But you know what? We'll buy new things. Even better ones." Sophia thought for a moment. "Did they take my toys too?" "Yes, sweetheart." I squeezed her hand. "Except." I reached into my bag and pulled out her worn teddy bear. "Look who I found." "Osito." Sophia hugged the toy tightly. "They didn't take him." "Nope. He was waiting for you." I smiled, watching the joy on her face. Children are incredible. I had expected tears and panic, but Sophia, hugging her bear, looked almost happy. "So Aunt Carmen and Diego and Lucia won't live with us anymore?" "No, never again," I said firmly. "What about Daddy?" Her voice trembled. I exchanged a glance with Elena. Dad will live separately for a while." "Okay." Sophia surprised me with her reaction. "He's been mean lately. Maybe if he lives on his own, he'll become nicer." The wisdom of a child was astounding. I hugged my daughter tightly. "Maybe, sweetheart. And now let's go to Aunt Elena's. She has a daughter your age, Valentina. You'll have someone to play with." Sophia brightened. "Do they have a cat?" "Miss Isabel Martinez promised to bring me a kitten if Mommy says yes." "We don't have a cat," Elena smiled, "but we do have a hamster named Dazzle. He's very friendly." "A hamster? That's awesome." Sophia jumped with excitement, and my heart softened a little. At Elena's house, we were warmly welcomed. Her husband, Javier, immediately took charge of entertaining the children while Elena and I discussed our next steps in the kitchen. "The police found the truck," Elena said, scanning a message on her phone. "The driver said he delivered everything to some warehouse outside the city. Carlos did all of this just to get the apartment." I shook my head. "He doesn't care about the furniture. He just wants a place for his sister." "Do you think they'll come back?" "I'm sure of it." I clenched my fists. "As soon as they realize I've changed the locks." My intuition didn't fail me. Around 10 p.m., Miguel Garcia called. "Maria, they're here. They're banging on your door, yelling. Carlos is threatening to call the police." "Let him," I said calmly. "I have all the documents." "Are you okay?" "Don't worry about me," the old man chuckled. "That Ramon is staying well away from me, but Carlos and Carmen are making a scene for the whole building to hear. Thank you for letting me know. Don't mention it. Stay strong." I shared the news with Elena. She nodded. "Let them scream. Legally, you're in the clear." The next day, Elena and I went to the apartment to assess the situation and start slowly settling in again. At the entrance, I ran into Carlos. He looked rumpled and angry. When he saw me, he marched toward me. What the hell did you change the locks for?" I stopped at a safe distance. "What the hell did you move everything out of the apartment for?" "It's our property." He stepped closer. "I have a right." "No, you don't." I met his eyes. "The police are already tracking the truck in the warehouse. You and Carmen are facing criminal charges for theft." Carlos went pale. What nonsense is this? It's marital property. No, I shook my head. Most of it was bought before the marriage, with my money. I can prove it with receipts and bank statements. He began to falter. You can't do this. This is our home. This is my home. I stood firm, and I filed for divorce. Here, I handed him a copy of the petition. You can take a look. Carlos took the paper with trembling hands. You can't. I can. I walked past him and headed toward the entrance. And I did. What about Sophia? He raised his voice. You're taking her father away from her. I turned back. You took yourself away from Sophia the moment you decided your sister was more important than your family. When you stole your own daughter's toys. Carlos ran after me. Wait, let's talk. I'll return everything. I swear. It's too late. I shook my head. Everything's already decided. Something like realization flickered in his eyes. Maria, please. Carmen planned all this. I couldn't say no to her. Why? I stopped. Why couldn't you say no to your sister but had no problem betraying your wife and child? He lowered his head. You don't understand. Carmen and I have always been together. Since we were kids. She's the only one who's always been on my side. And me? I looked at him in disbelief. Wasn't I on your side all these years? It's different. He couldn't meet my eyes. Carmen is. She's my blood. And Sophia? She's your blood too. But you stole her toys, her books, her clothes. How could you? He said nothing. And in that silence, I heard more than any words could say. Goodbye, Carlos. I turned to leave. From now on, we'll speak only through court and lawyers. Wait. He grabbed my arm. I'll fix everything. I swear. I pulled away. There's nothing left for you to fix. Just return what you stole and stop making this worse. Inside the building, I ran into Carmen. She stood with her arms crossed, blocking the way to the elevator. So you showed up? This is my home. I wasn't backing down. Get out of the way. In your dreams. She scoffed. Carlos is registered here. He has the right to live in this apartment. Maybe he has the right to live here, I nodded, but not the right to steal. Where are my things, Carmen? She narrowed her eyes. What things? I don't know anything. The police will find the warehouse soon, I smiled. And then you and Ramon could be looking at prison time for theft. Carmen paled. You're bluffing. Carlos won't let them jail his sister. Carlos doesn't get to decide anymore, I shrugged. He's a defendant now just like you. She stepped back, and I walked past her to the elevator. Elena was waiting in the car outside. She had watched the exchange with Carlos and now looked anxiously toward the entrance. Everything okay? She asked as I got in. Yes, I nodded. They're panicking, afraid of criminal charges. As they should be, Elena started the engine. This is grand theft. By the evening, the investigator handling our case called. Maria, we found the warehouse. Your belongings are there. Everything's intact. Can you come for identification? Of course, I felt a wave of relief. When will we get everything back? After the official procedures, the investigator replied. But it's a matter of a few days. I told Sophia that we'd be going back home soon and that all our things would be returned. She was happy, but then quietly asked, And Dad? Will he come back? I shook my head. No, sweetheart. Dad will be living separately. We're separating. Sophia thought for a moment. Because of Aunt Carmen? Yes, I saw no point in lying. Dad chose Aunt Carmen over us. She's mean, Sophia said with childlike bluntness. And her kids are mean too. I'm glad they won't live with us anymore. I hugged my daughter, amazed by her wisdom. Me too, sweetheart. Everything will be fine now. A week later, we returned to our apartment. Everything was back in place, furniture, appliances, clothes. Sophia ran to her room, checking to make sure everything had been returned. I slowly walked through the rooms, getting used to being home again. Carlos never showed up. Through his lawyer, he said he agreed to the divorce and wouldn't contest the apartment. Apparently, the threat of criminal charges had sobered him up. Carmen and Ramon disappeared from town, rumor had it they moved to stay with relatives in another region. I was more than happy about that. The farther away, the better. That evening, the doorbell rang. Miguel Garcia stood on the threshold with a bottle of cognac. To welcome you back. May I? Of course. I opened the door wide. Come in. We sat in the kitchen, and I told him how everything had worked out. The stuff was returned, Carlos agreed to the divorce, and the criminal case has been suspended for now. I brought this. Miguel Garcia pulled a set of keys from his pocket. Copies to your apartment. Just in case. You never know when you might need help. I was touched. Thank you. You've done so much for us. Nonsense, the old man waved it off. Neighbors should help each other. Not every neighbor would defend a stranger's family, I smiled. You're a true hero. He blushed. Come on, I just did what I thought was right. We drank to new beginnings, to justice, to the future. Sophia ran into the kitchen to show off her restored toy collection, and Miguel Garcia offered her a candy he'd thoughtfully brought in his pocket. Looking at my daughter, I thought about how strangely things had turned out. Just a week ago, my life was crumbling, and now I felt an incredible lightness, as if I had shed a heavy burden. You know, Miguel Garcia said suddenly, sometimes it takes a shakeup to see people for who they really are. Yes, I nodded. Sometimes justice comes in an unexpected form. In the form of an old neighbor with iron fists? He squinted playfully. Exactly, I laughed. An old neighbor with iron fists and a kind heart. The divorce was finalized quickly. Carlos didn't contest a single point in the agreement, as if he was in a hurry to close that chapter of his life. He was granted weekend visits with Sophia, but he often canceled with various excuses. I didn't push it. Sophia was better off without a father like that. We never heard from Carmen and her family again. It was as if they had vanished, leaving behind only a bitter aftertaste. Sophia quickly adapted to our new life. Without the constant tension and conflict, she blossomed. She smiled more, did better in school. We got a kitten. Isabel Martinez kept her promise and brought a fluffy ginger baby, whom Sophia named Marsic. And me? I learned to appreciate the silence of my own home, learned to trust my instincts, and not to be afraid of starting over. Some evenings, Miguel Garcia and I would share coffee in the kitchen, and he'd tell incredible stories from his military days while Sophia listened wide-eyed. Justice doesn't always come the way we expect. Sometimes it looks like a paratrooper, sometimes like a kind neighbor who can't walk past someone else's suffering. And in that justice, I found my salvation.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.